That's where we're going? Let me just see something here and check that. Move that around. All right. We're heading up to China. And we've got an Antiguan and Barbudan up there in China. And we're going to find out exactly what in good God gracious is she doing all the way over there in China. Let's bring her up. Let's see who we have on deck. Good morning. Oh, you're unmute yourself, my dear good sister.
Sorry.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear now. And of course, we've
You
got.
must start with AA.
I love the glasses, my sister. You should make sure you bring me back a pair of that. Did you get that up there in China?
Yes, I did.
There you go. Antigua people easy, tall.
Look, hey, the price mean good. The price mean good. You make me an offer. You want this? I no, don't leave.
Yeah, they're gonna make sure they get you to purchase something there. Yeah, so we have Miss Petra Williams. She is in China and have been for a little bit, and certainly we're gonna hear from her exactly what are some things. Why are you in China today, my friend?
Well, I'm actually on a 4 month media tour.
4 months.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So the China Public Diploma Association, which is an arm of the Chinese government responsible for, in short words, spreading the gospel of China to the rest of the world, hosts a 4 month media tour twice yearly, inviting media personnel, people who are involved in various aspects of the media to China, and they basically tour you for 4 months. I am the second person from Antigua to have been on this tour.
Right.
It's about 10 years old.
10 years old. Oh, so it's been around. It's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, so we Antigua and Barbuda media people have some catching up to do. This segment that I'm on is the second for the year. There are representatives from 87 countries. There are just about 100 of us.
Right.
From the Caribbean, there are 10 of us from 9 Caribbean countries. There are persons here from Latin, in addition to the Caribbean, there's Latin America, there's Eurasia, there is, of course, the Africans, there's the Pacific. Just about every region is covered.
Right. There's quite a bit happening. It's always happening in China. You have quite a bit of meetings and a lot and a lot of that stuff.
Listen, there are at least 2 meetings per day in China. At least. I look in the papers, in the magazines. I'm like, these people meet.
I don't envy you at all. Always going to China is always a busy time. What are some of those things that you are involved in? I know that there is the 4th China Caribbean Economic and Trade Cooperation Forum that was held.
Yes.
And there are other meetings. Oftentimes here in Antigua, we hear about these kind of meetings and we just say, well, another meeting. But these meetings, I always like to tell people you have to be at the table. Because if you're not at the table when these discussions are happening, you're really playing the 8th ball way behind all the other Caribbean islands, because they must send for them the people too. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of some of these meetings, Petra. I mean, you're not just a media person. I know in our later sides of lives, both you and I, we've taken on media, but we've been involved in policy.
Listen, I am still the person I am doing some media appearances. I don't know what
media appearances. I like that. I like your media appearances. But talk to me a little bit about the importance of these high-level meetings and the importance of Antiguans and Barbudans understanding what is at risk and what is at play here.
Well, I'm actually going to tie 2 together. So just before the Caribbean, the Latin American and Caribbean meeting, there was a very, very, very high-level meeting between China and the Africans. And I'm mentioning that because some of the key elements of that were fed into our meetings and to show some of the connections. So at that meeting, Xi Jinping, the president of China, he launched the modernization of China concept. So we should be familiar with the concept of the Belt and Road,
The Belt and Road
which,
Initiative, yes.
yes, which is an initiative whereby China is underwriting, supporting infrastructure development by air and sea to ensure that there is connectivity across the globe. Well, by air, sea, and technology, but for Antigua and Barbuda, by air and sea to facilitate interconnection across the globe.
Right.
So at the African China Summit, there was a renewed commitment to that and a significant investment, $100 billion put up for the Belt and Road Initiative, not just for the Africans, but of course for Caribbean and Latin American countries, and the Pacific also would benefit. So that was one of the benefits for us that came out of that. Another benefit that came out of that meeting that would have impacted on us is that China has they understand the assignment that they have a very large market and can absorb goods from across the globe.
Right.
And so they have lowered their tariffs on a range of commodities, specifically for LDCs. Now, I say specifically for LDCs because some Caribbean countries automatically fall into LDCs.
Right.
But piggybacking on that initiative, coming into the Latin American Caribbean Summit, the Caribbean, in particular, CARICOM, sought to ensure that that tariff reduction or tariff removal was extended across our Caribbean region, notwithstanding that many of our countries may not still be classified as LDCs.
Right.
So I just wanted to highlight those two that came out of the Africa China Summit. One other thing that I just want to pull there before we move on to what you asked me, that came out of that summit. Well, we are all here together. Well, we are all here. We're not say together. So we have the Africans here. They are the largest
The
group.
delegation. Yeah.
We have the Pacific, the Caribbean, and so on. And usually we move in our region.
Right.
So the Caribbean, we would move as a region. When there's need to expand ours, we become Latin America and the Caribbean.
Right.
For the Africa-China Summit, we were moved en masse. We were moved together, and we were forced to cooperate and to collaborate with each other. That was a very interesting moment. There were two. The most interesting one, especially for us from the Caribbean, was that we walked in the room and everybody assumed we were Africans.
Yeah.
We were convinced that we don't look like them. Yeah, we are black, but we don't look like them. And so I think for us, it was a come to Jesus moment.
Yes,
when you realize
clearly
that the rest of the world lump us together, whether we are convinced we Caribbean and they are Africans, all the rest of the world sees is
black people,
all the way as one family.
Africa, yeah.
It was a very jarring moment for us in the Caribbean because someone will come over to do an interview and we'll go like, we're not African. We're not. First we would say we're not Africans, and then we realize that makes no sense.
No sense at all because our lineage is connected.
Not from Africa. And that didn't work. So then we are from the Caribbean. And they're like, which part in Africa? And after a while, we just gave up and started giving the interviews.
Yes.
So they would ask, did you do an interview? Okay. We're realizing we have to. And so in the interview now, we would then say, well, in our Caribbean, name our country, and then give our context there. Because they didn't hear us.
Yeah.
We're not Africans. So I think for many of us, that was our first encounter with, this is what you are. Because we are Caribbean. And you understand? We say we're Afro-Caribbean, we're this as our distinguishing feature at this summit. No, you're all black, all y'all. You know? Yeah. So I just wanted to point out.
Yeah, and still as Caribbean countries and people, we're still trying to be identified as Caribbean. And you're absolutely right. And when you go, we're so small.
Caribbean.
Yeah, we're so small and minute that people only remember us if for some disaster or you're the hurricane people, right? You're the people who had yeah. So you would have had the China Caribbean Corporation. You'd have
And then,
had
so
all
now,
of
yes,
that.
the China Latin American
Latin American
and
Corporation.
Caribbean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Now the Belt and
Actually, it was the China Latin American, and then they eventually remembered, oh, yes, the
the
Caribbean.
Caribbean,
Sorry to
which
put it like,
usually,
but yeah,
which usually
sometimes
gets tagged
we're that
down.
small. Mhm.
You made mention of the Belt and Road Initiative and the $100 billion that is attached to that. Connect that for us here in Antigua, because the government just over the last year and a half now, or maybe 2 years, would have expanded the Deepwater Harbor. And
90 million US dollar
90
project,
million
yes.
US dollar project. That formed part of, or came out, I think, of the Belt and Road
Yes, that
Initiative,
is a
right?
part of the Belt and Road
So
Initiative.
just connect that very quickly for us so that people can understand that we are already participating and we are a part of what that global initiative of China is.
In fact, I can't remember the exact date. I had it somewhere, and I'm apologizing. I'll have it next time. But we actually became a part of the Belt and Road Initiative when under the UPP administration with the expansion of the airport.
Right.
Because
Okay.
the expansion of the airport was also a part of the Belt and Road project that was
Initiative.
financed under that initiative.
Okay. Grand.
So in essence, out in the region, in the Caribbean region, China has been underwriting the cost of infrastructure upgrades and development. And this is an significant component because prior to China coming on board with Belt and Road initiatives, the cost of borrowing funds for infrastructure was at least 2 to 3 times the interest rate that we're paying for the funds that we get from China. And also the grant component was not as robust as what we get from China. It has to be said that over time, not only for the Caribbean, but for Africa, the quality of the initiatives have improved. I think initially there were some challenges with the quality of materials and the work that we were getting, and most importantly, the maintenance. But especially like for us in Antigua, I think we have taken over maintenance.
Right.
And in some of the other islands, there are better programs in place to support maintenance, which is and I mentioned that because in where I have been to, I've been to 2 provinces in China to date, and the maintenance challenges that we have at home, I don't see here.
Yeah.
So, and I mentioned that because one of the concerns we often have with projects that we get from China is maintenance. I'm wondering, is it our responsibility or their responsibility? And how do we resolve that?
Well,
Because it makes no sense having these
yeah.
significant investments and we don't address maintenance.
Well, let me tell you, because I remember when I had the responsibilities to negotiate the stadium, that was grandfathered into the arrangement. So still to this day, I think just last year, the Chinese had honored, still continue to honor that agreement for the Sir Vivian Cricket Stadium, that every 2 years, I think, or every 4 years, they will come back in and they will retrofit toilets, they will do all the necessary things.
No, the last,
pipings.
and the reason why I mentioned it, because I know
Yeah.
the last retrofitting just completed was
Right.
actually done by National Housing. So
Well,
I'm wondering where is our
because we
Yeah.
had already passed the date for the Chinese upgrade, and we needed to do it now for CPL. So that's where National Housing had actually come in. But there is still a grandfather clause
agreement?
within
But
the
we need to work on
within
it
the
because
stadium.
I want
Yeah.
to see the quality of maintenance
Agreed.
that I see over here
Yeah,
at home.
agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Desperately.
Agreed. Let me just remind our listeners that we are listening to Petra The Spectator. Remember, you can go
Petra,
and...
Winston.
oh, my
Winston.
goodness.
Winston. Okay, you're supposed to know better. Go ahead.
Am I not older than you?
No.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah, this is what happens when you're speaking to your big sisters. All right. So, so Petra The Spectator is live with us. She's coming to us live from China. Where in China are you today, Petra?
I am presently at, what time is it? 8:36 p.m. in China, seated in my apartment, block 13, in the diplomatic center in Chanyang.
In where?
In Changyang, Beijing.
Changyang, Beijing. Okay, let's
Yes.
go back. Let's go back very quickly to the whole question of these agreements that and partnerships that we're having. China and the government of Antigua and Barbuda since the early 80s, I think it was. Antigua was one of the first within the Caribbean, I think, to recognize
Yes.
China as a one China, their one China policy.
Under the one China policy.
Right,
Yes.
and we've seen benefits.
I got a
from
very
that.
interesting lesson in that, by the way, today.
Tell us.
Right, China policy. So today we visited the China on the 30th of September will be 75 years
Oh, wow.
of their national anniversary when the People's Party became the government of China. It's 75 years.
Right.
And so today we went to visit the museum, the National Museum for the party. Dropping hints for some people for the party.
Yes.
And it was a very fascinating study where they traced the development of China over the years, the revolutions, the conflicts, internal conflicts, the party development, the leadership. So from their first president to their present president, how the country evolved, the major policies that guided the development of the country as exposed by the party. It was very party-centric. But in the party-centric focus, you also got the history of Antigua and Barbuda. Sorry, of China. See, I get myself in trouble? And as I was going through, I couldn't help reflecting. Imagine if we were able to trace our history from the 39ers. A museum, because, for example, we have that very nice bust outside the post office.
Yes.
With a plaque.
Yeah.
But you really don't get the history
story.
of what the 39ers mean in terms of the long-term development of the nation. And then we would have gone on to Sir VC and Sir George and Prime Minister Spencer and Sir Lester and so on. But I'm mentioning that in terms of so that you can see over time. So, for example, when they mention the importance of education and how they use education as a policy tool to develop China. And I'm thinking, okay, in Antigua, there was a policy to put a primary school in every village and the impact that had on our literacy rates. But we don't know. We don't know that it was a policy done under which administration and how that helped. We know today about the university and how it came to be and all of that because we are here today. But 10 years from today, where will we be to just see that history?
And who's going to tell that
story?
How
it happened, right? Yeah. The history of how we how we went into tourism. They in that museum, you were able to trace how the Chinese Communist Party contributed to the development of China. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Well, we're both.
I know resources, of course, will be an issue, but I think it's something. There's something in there for us in Antigua and Barbuda.
We are both two old history buffs, not as good as Sir Max, who you oftentimes sit beside in church, and who we're going to have a conversation with right after you about some other matters. But you are absolutely correct. The story must be told, and it must be put in a way that future generations, whenever they arrive, they can keep adding to it. I think that's what. Every time I go to China, I come back with this feeling that hey, we just need to do so much more. Let's go back.
And I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. This is not a blowhorn moment, but as I walked through, I felt at least a little pleased with myself because that little project I do, the Spectator project, which is in part with me being in China, I feel good because I'm able to, at least in writing, able to capsule some important elements of our country's history and leave it there for others to follow.
Right. And of course, let me remind our listeners that the Spectator, Petra The Spectator, captures a lot of our history, both people and places, and of course, she puts it in this time capsule so that we can have it. Petra, let's go back to policy because that's where you and I meet at the hip in terms of policy. Trade cooperation Why is it important that small islands like ours, like we're in so many brackets, lesser developed states or island states?
I'm sorry, when you said you graduated us, we're no longer a lesser developed country.
Oh, we're no longer.
All right. Fights for us to be considered on other matrix, but we're no longer a lesser developed country.
All right. So just very quickly, as we seek to wrap up our first segment of Where in the World Are You Today, talk to us about the importance of small countries like ours sitting at the table of these huge, what do you call them now? Negotiations, economic trade, and these forums.
To my mind, there are three key reasons. Number one, as a developing country, we actually do need more resources than we are able to generate as a developing nation. I mean, if you follow our budgets, annual budgets, you'll hear about the trade deficits. We have more needs than we can raise resources for. And so sitting at the table with global partners who have funds available that can assist in our national development, it is very vital for us to show up, to be at the table. It is also vital for us to be able to prepare those very important reports that we can present so that they have an appreciation for what we're doing in our countries and where our gaps are so that they can assist. That's one. Two, on the bilateral level, for the China Latin American Summit, CARICOM was there. And the CARICOM was there because a significant part of what the funding that China is giving to the region now is that they're investing in the CARICOM Development Fund and the Caribbean Development Bank. And so we have to support CARICOM and the Development Bank when they make those push to get those kinds of funding from China and other large countries like that. Why? Because, for example, the CDB funding is where the Board of Education gets a significant amount of its money that is used to overhaul our education plans. The CARICOM Development Fund is where significant funds go so that some of our road infrastructure and so on are able to be financed. And so it is critical for us to sit at those tables. In fact, I'll tell you, I have a clip in the same party exhibition hall today. There is a photo of the very first such meeting that was held.
You sent that
There's
to
a
me,
photo.
did you?
And no, I don't think I sent it. I'm so sorry.
Right,
I took a video. I know I wasn't sure we'd be able to show a video. Okay. And the representative from Antigua to that meeting features. Oh, wow. So, of course, I got all excited. I took the video.
And who was this? And who was the representative?
Our present Minister of Tourism, Max Fernandez.
Max Fernandez, okay.
I think he was Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time. And so all the CARICOM countries had a representative. He was standing like 2 off from President Maduro. Maduro was there, representative from Cuba. Yeah. And so Max, he was right in the front row. I was very pleased.
So Antigua
and so we might not have it documented on our side, but it's certainly here. So Antigua is in that museum.
Right. Certainly.
But I said, and I wanted to just mention too, in terms of the negotiation. So there are two things I want to mention that came out of that will impact Antigua very quickly. One, we have a partnership now. So the city of St. John's has been twinned with the city of Sanya. Now, Sanya is located in Hainan, China's island province. The closest they come to our island conditions. Right. And out of that twinning, there are to be cultural collaborations, opportunities. So Sanya is developing a free trade zone. Like we already have free trade zones. Right. Sanya is developing a free trade zone for medical tourism. They're developing a free trade zone for education, just like we have AUA. Right. They have over 8 universities, not medical alone, but different universities, just as we have AUA. They have that. They have medical tourism. They have cultural tourism. They actually cater to the Russians. You know, the Russians are a significant element, growing element of our yachting industry, where they bring their yachts here. In Sanya, they rent yachts. And so we now are partnering with Sanya in terms of developments. And so I think there's a good opportunity. I am seeing already that we can bring some of our artists here to perform, our soca and calypso artists and others, other mainstream, because they have a variety of genres. And our artists, our painters, our creators, costume builders, and so on. Because there's always something going on in Sanya. So I'm seeing that there are opportunities for the expansion of our creative industries and for niche sectors that we can export to Sanya, and from Sanya now get into the rest of China.
Seems like you are exceedingly busy. You don't wear the hat of ambassador, but certainly you wear the hat of citizen. And Petra The Spectator is in China. She's attending quite a number of some of these bilateral meetings, and we're very happy to have you there. You're absolutely correct when you said that we need, especially when it comes to our history, to be able to really lay down the history in form so that future generations can have the opportunity. I'm being joined on air now, Petra. I'm gonna link us up with one of your fellow parishioners, and of course, it's none other than His Excellency Ambassador Lionel Maxhurst. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Comrade Williams, and good morning to my parishioner and dear friend.
Did you hear that sigh she just gave?
Good morning, Pew Buddy. Don't let Winston mix us up. Good morning, Pew Buddy.
Yes, we stand next to each other in church, and when she sings, I shut up so that I can listen to the great sound emanating from those beautiful lips.
Oh my goodness. It would appear anyway. Let me not even go down that road there. 48 minutes.
I got it from our father. You didn't get that.
Well, no, clearly not. Okay, clearly not. 48 minutes down after the hour of 8 o'clock. Ambassador, I brought you into this conversation. I know we're going to have a bit of a conversation about some other matters, but something that Petra would have spoken about the party's history and the party that is the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party. Really capturing its history and putting it out for show, and being able to allow for future generations to be able to grasp it. Is that something that you would be able to work with Petra on to make sure that happens? And there goes the smile across her face.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that we would want to capture the history of the party itself. Although I might tell you that we did work on a biography of Vere Cornwall Bird. And in many ways, it is the story of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party and, of course, the Antigua Trades and Labour Union. Mm-hmm. Petra worked on Novell Richards' The Struggle and the Conquest. Oh. And, yeah, she gave it its modern look. And also some editorials. She had the Honorable Gaston Brown as a grandson of Sir Novell Richards, also featured in the foreword of that Struggle and the Conquest redone. So of course, she plays a very important role with her Spectator, that in fact captures slices of the history of Antigua and Barbuda, whether it be through music, poetry, dance, and
or Mr. Hurst's car. Don't forget your car. Okay.
All right, Petra, I'm gonna let you go now, but I want to thank you so much for being a part of one of the first initiatives. This program, Where in the World Are You Today? And I'm hoping that by next week, when we come back to you, we'll have more pictures and sites and food and all the different things that you're doing.
I have all the food. I'm ready with the food.
I'm
ready with the food.
That came out quite quickly.
Ready with food.
So we've been speaking with Petra Williams. I'm going to get in trouble, more trouble there. Petra, thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye, Mr. Hurst. Bye.
Yes, goodbye, Petra.